Welcome to the afternoon drive. Had a good Monday morning. Looking forward to going home and relaxing a little bit. I was thinking about the more you look into self-development, personal professional development, self-awareness, all the things that we love to talk about. If you pay close enough attention, one thing that can be frustrating is the seemingly contradictory subjects. For example, embrace imperfection, but also never be satisfied with your deficiencies, right? So we're trying to look at this thing, as a big picture and try to see how you can, over time, improve all these areas of your life. Sometimes looking very specifically down to a very minute detail, up to, in the Air Force, what you used to call the 30,000 foot view, the overall view of whatever it is that you're trying to do, your organization, your team, whatever it is that you're trying to improve. And so I wanted to talk about accepting, or not accepting, but understanding and accepting your shortcomings, your imperfections. But I don't want it to sound contradictory to all the other videos where I'm like, you need to work on yourself and you need to improve. The idea that I want to get across here is it's a never-ending process. You're never going to be complete, and that's the point. That's why perfectionism is not a healthy, productive performance trait. You're never going to be perfect. You're never going to be done. There's always going to be something to work on, and that's okay. If you have that mentality, then the healthy side of that is, okay, what can I improve on today? While celebrating your wins, your successes, your progress. And so the idea of accepting and being okay with imperfections is you're always going to find them. And that's where self-awareness comes in, of where can I put my effort to make the greatest impact? And I buy into the idea of strengths-based. A lot of things, right? Individual, teams, parenting. And the idea behind strength-based is you find out what you're good at, what you're passionate about, and lean into it. And identify the things that you don't do quite so well, or the shortcomings that you might have, and then work on those while you're also leaning into your strengths. So use the example of an American football team. If you're a 5'10", really stocky, fast person, I'm going to put you at running back. I'm not going to put you at quarterback or wide receiver. It doesn't fit your strengths. I hope that's not too obscure to people that don't know football very well. But you understand my point, is that I'm not going to take you and immediately throw you in and say, okay, here's your shortcoming, go do this. At the same time, I want you to continually look at ways that you can improve. But I don't want it to be one of those things where it's self-defeating or hypercritical. It's okay to be critical of yourself. Just don't be hypercritical. Don't put yourself down because you're not good enough. Because the idea is that you're never going to be good enough. And that's a good thing. So there's a couple things here. Number one, have a lifelong learner attitude. Lean into your strengths and look for ways to improve, whether it be education, experience, formal training, mentoring, observing and modeling. A lot of ways for you to improve. A lot of this comes from self-awareness, the willingness to look for your strengths and your shortcomings. the biggest barrier to improvement is assuming you know everything. The first step to education is admitting you don't know something and being okay with it and being excited about the opportunity to learn, right? So self-awareness and the lifelong learning mentality. But then you also have trying to focus on traffic, sorry, give me just a second. So you have the self-awareness, you have the lifelong learner mentality, self-compassion. Have some self-compassion. It doesn't mean make excuses for bad behavior. It doesn't mean make excuses for shortcomings. It's simply acknowledging non-judgmentally. Just be very factual. This is where I'm at. This is what things look like. This is where I'm going. And this is how I get there. Don't beat yourself up. And if you find something that, I was having a conversation with a friend the other day as an example, and they were working their way through a difficult situation where they received feedback. Part of it they identified with, they understood, they saw it, they said, yep, I did that, I'm going to work on that. But there were other things where they got feedback they didn't agree on, and they gave their feedback that they didn't agree on it, and the boss, the supervisor that was talking to them, basically just shut them down and say, this is what we see and this is what we want you to do. Well, she felt like she had already been doing some of those things, and she felt dejected because there was no real opportunity for discussion. And so as she was following up, as you want to do professionally, and writing a message, trying to be professional, she kept finding herself falling into this emotional trigger response and getting upset. And the more she typed or wrote what she wanted to say back to these people, the more it was becoming unprofessional. She was communicating, but she was getting very frustrated, and it was coming across in her writing. And so we talked some more about that, and it was, the situation is the situation, right? There's not much you can do about that. You can influence certain things, and she was trying to control what she could control, and she was trying to move on and write and get a professional response. What was causing her to become more frustrated was the frustration she was experiencing. She couldn't get over her emotional response of frustration. The more she thought about it, the more frustrated she got. She was ruminating on it, which is easy to see why, because she was writing a response letter, so she had to think about everything over and over again, right? So you can see the problem here. She wasn't able to get herself out of this frustration loop. And so the more she got frustrated, the more her writing was becoming more and more unprofessional. The more she was writing unprofessional, the more frustrated she got because she couldn't snap herself out of this thing. It was this downward spiral trap. And so the first step, what I told her is the first step is to step away and just stop writing, because it's not doing you any good. It's not productive. I realize you have to get it done, but it's not working. And then the other thing was, what kind of resources can you use? Well, you have other people that can review it for you. You have AI writing that can, hey, here's my thoughts, write this as a professional email. And I don't want people to use AI to completely replace their writing, but it's a tool, just like accountants use Excel, right? To make they're still responsible for the numbers and understanding how it all works, but they use the tool to make it faster. Okay, we'll use AI to help you rewrite this so that it's professional, but then understand, look at the two and say, well, this is how I wrote it when I was frustrated, and this is what something would look like professional, and then you learn from the two. Use AI as a tool to help you get smarter, not to replace your thinking ability or your ability to learn and grow. And so she actually thought that was a really good idea, so she was going to use the AI writer, put in her thoughts, even if they were rude, just write it raw, and then say, hey, here's the thoughts, take the outcome, or take the ideas behind this, but understanding this is a frustrating email, or an email from frustration, how do I make this sound professional? That's what she was going to try to do. So I'm waiting to hear back on what that looks like. But I'm going to encourage the growth of Now you need to, how do you learn to do that now? Because eventually, if you want to grow as a professional, you have to be able to do that. You may not have the time and the space 4 days to write an email and then have AI rewrite it for you. It might be in the moment. You have to figure out how to do that. So that's an imperfection. And it was the frustration that was tripping her up. So it's that area that she has to learn how to be okay with. Right now, I am experiencing this. That's where I'm at. I don't want to get upset at myself. It's just where I'm at. And then you can begin to objectively review where you're at, what your skills are, what your strengths are, and then figure out where you go from there. So constantly have a constant self-awareness mindset to become more self-aware. Have the lifelong learner mentality. I want to grow. Here's my strengths, here's my weaknesses. How can I grow from that? And then self-compassion. Okay, I have weaknesses. I have shortcomings. How can I more productively grow from here? Have that non-judgmental attitude. It's not about being upset at yourself. It's not about being defensive to other people. It's just the facts. This is where I'm at. This is how I can grow. This is how I can make it happen. It's going to help remove some of the emotion so you can think objectively and come up with a plan and execute the plan. So as you go through and you listen to more of what I have to say or what other people have to say, if you start hearing things that might sound counterintuitive, or not counterintuitive, but counterproductive or contradictory, that's the word I was looking for. Just try to think of, well, is it relevant to certain things, right? Because one video might be looking at something or examining something else, situation specific or skill specific. So 2 things I want you to take from this is understanding imperfections are natural. How do you learn to be okay with your imperfections? But also understanding self-help is complicated. It can be complicated. One of my favorite sayings is don't confuse simple with easy. All right, so this stuff should be simple. But the more you listen to it, the more you learn, the more you realize you don't. The more you learn, the more you realize you don't know. There's a lot of things to learn, and when you start getting into things like self-development, it's never going to end. So I hope that was relevant. I hope that was meaningful. And the more I do talks like this, the more. Some are going to be better than others. Some are going to be more coherent than others. Of course, I'm driving in traffic, so sometimes distracted. That's my priority. But while I'm driving, I'll try to talk through this. As always, I'd love to hear your feedback, your thoughts, questions, concerns, comments. How is this relevant to you? Agree, disagree? I'd love to hear your feedback. I'd also like to hear your opinions on what are some things that are challenging for you that I might be able to talk through as I'm driving. What are some things that you're doing really well? It's another thing I like to talk about. We're not always fixing broken things. Let's celebrate the good things. Tell me what you're doing well. What used to be a challenge that's not a challenge. And how did you overcome it? What are you doing about it right now, right? Let's give you a pat on the back and encourage you and see how we can help you develop even further. Subscribe. Would love for you to get the content as it's coming out, and then we can start building this community. And yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing from you. You'll hear from me tomorrow.